super chaotic.
We're doing one for Halloween next week too, where everybody's dressing up. Like we bring the whole band in, everybody's mic'd up, everybody has a talk mic.
Yep.
It's always a scene. We did a St. Patrick's Day one.
Yeah.
Where there's Guinnesses getting passed around. There's the full band. There's like
a full band in here in this room. Right here?
Yeah. It's you should see it. It is a spectacle.
I guess if you had like the drums, bass player,
we'll push
table
the drums
wasn't here.
back. We'll run the bass DI, so that takes an amp out of the equation.
Put someone in there.
Yeah, we kind of we had a keyboard player. We kind of squeezed him back this way a little bit.
Yep.
We had 6 cameras. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, we have
Taylor and I are squeezed into that corner, holding the mics just like this.
We have to partner up with another podcast because we don't have the cameras.
We had to borrow cameras from another podcast.
Is that tall enough to stand up there?
It's not really.
It's 5 foot. Which I dated a 5 foot girl and she could stand perfectly. It's exactly 5 foot.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like crouched down in there.
It's like Indian style up there.
Exactly.
You could sit on the floor with an acoustic with the mic low.
You totally could. It'd be a vibe. It'd be a vibe.
For sure.
But we also do master classes in here too.
Yeah.
And we fit we had Austin Cannon in.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
He's a producer around here. We fit 25 people in this room.
I mean, you could hey, you could do it in any room.
It didn't feel too tight. Like we take this table out, we take the drum kit out, we take that thing out, and just gut the whole thing and put up 25 chairs and just hope.
And then
it's a very modular space.
You usually have like a mixed desk in here, or
it's like a little foldable IKEA table.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need a lot. You just need your outboard gear and a computer. I mean,
like
interface.
He mixes his own stuff mostly on headphones and laptop, and then most of the stuff that gets recorded here I mix. So I have a setup at my house that I mix from. And
Jackson does the mixing for everybody in here, but I just for my own goofy electronic stuff.
Yeah,
I mix it myself.
Well, you guys are in the perfect location too. I mean, like, how close are you to like Gray Box Studios?
So he's near Lipscomb.
Yeah, he's over in like Green Hills, kind of.
Yeah, okay. I thought I was close to there when I was pulling up, but maybe not.
My house is only like 9 minutes down the road from him.
Oh, that's such a weird thought to me too.
Yeah, and it's like you don't realize how close it is, but I can hop on Thompson, as I live in like southeast Nashville, so I'm like 15 minutes from here, 8 minutes from Berry Hill. Yeah, I can get around.
Yeah, there's some restaurants over here that look pretty nice. When I was coming in, I'm like, it's a nice spot, man.
Bobo Korean,
bunch of great spots,
right up the street.
I wish I had my wife. I'd take her out tonight.
There's good food here, dude.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of good food. Lots of good like outdoorsy spots.
We're kind of, when you live in Franklin, you kind of get in this little Franklin bubble. You know,
yeah,
the Franklin bubble.
Yeah. Well, it's the East Nashville bubble too. Like you just get used to
wherever
you go.
you live. It's where you hang out. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in downtown Franklin. You know, which is great. Charged for steaks. You know.
Yeah, you got your 4 or 5 go-to spots, and then
it's like a steak costs like literally $30 more out there. You know?
Yeah.
Well, so
gas
here.
Yeah, 30 cents more expensive too. I feel like in Franklin, in Franklin than anywhere else. Yeah, every time I cross into Williamson County, it's like, oh, gas went up 35 cents.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of studios like this. Like one day I was in my backyard and this guy's dog ran into my backyard.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, sorry, like that's my bad." And I had the doors open to the studio. And he was like, "Oh, cool! Like you got a little studio back here." I'm like, "Yeah, it's fun. Like, come check it out." He came inside, looked at it, and he's like, "Yeah, I actually got a studio for myself." I'm like, "Oh, really? Like, where is it?" It's like it's 2 doors down. Like, "Oh, okay, sure. Like, can I check it out sometime?"
Yeah.
And I go over, and there's like a bathroom in there. There's a mixing room. There's a drum room. There's a vocal room. There's like gold records on the wall. Like. Real deal. I mean, a lot like your studio. Real deal. Not like a little tough shit, but we're able to pull stuff.
Hey, this is dude.
No, we're able to.
We get a lot done.
I see something that looks good. This looks good, man.
We're able to do a lot.
I don't care about the size. It's all about how it looks, you know, and sounds.
It's very true.
I know it sounds good in here. I can already tell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get good sounds in here. We've done really. It's funny. Like we've had a lot of full band kind of live stuff in here with the podcast, and then we did a project for an artist back in March. They did a full live session in here, and we had
that was cool. Michael Witt.
Yeah, that one was pretty crazy because we had like a videographer with all this different lighting stuff going on, and I was squeezed back behind the band like engineering the session. And
Yeah.
but then when I took it to my house to mix it, it was just like everything sounded so great, and it's full band going with drums, bass, guitar, keys, multiple vocals. But we've done that several times and it sounded great.
Sounds good, dude.
Nice, man.
A lot of drum tracking.
We're probably already going at this point.
Yeah, we're in the podcast at this point.
So, when did you start the studio in the garage?
So I bought the house in 2020 out in Franklin, and we needed to figure out where the studio was going to go. At first, we were going to put it just in a bonus room, like everyone does. But my wife was like, "There's no way we're going to be able to have a professional studio in a bonus room with 2 kids." So the garage was kind of the next best place. And so I was kind of trying to figure out if this was going to work, because there was a train that goes by in Franklin. There's farm animals and all sorts of loud noises. So I met this studio designer named Chris McCollum, who does a lot of rooms, and he came over and was like, "This is just not going to work, like, at all." I'm like, "That's a little negative. I mean, really, you can make a studio happen in any room."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, but I mean, you got a train." I mean, I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not New York City. I mean, come on, we're in the country. This could work, right?" So he's like, "Well, it's going to cost money. It's going to cost, a lot of money to do this." And I'm like, "All right, well, let's do it." So he basically comes up with a plan for the room. And, it basically was, we got to get the floor kind of lifted.
Yep.
Because, you can't have a concrete floor, with a train going by. You got to get it up a little bit. So he said, we got to float the floor. We got to bring in insulation. We got to bring in drywall. He was like, "You're probably going to need at least 2 layers of drywall, at 5/8 drywall."
Yeah.
And so it ended up being 3 layers of drywall, because 2 wasn't enough to stop, the train and all the stuff going by. So, rock wool insulation, 3 layers of drywall, floated the floor, finished it out, painted it. And about 3 months later, I had a done room in a garage. And
3 months.
Yeah, it took 3 months.
Wow.
That's pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
good.
It's pretty quick, mainly just because we were waiting on contractors, other jobs, stuff like that.
It's a lot to coordinate.
And once the room was done, I was able to kind of move the desk in, shoot the room, figure out kind of where we wanted the desk, do the triangle, figure out where we want the panels.
Yep.
So we brought in a guy, Music City Acoustics here in town.
Yeah.
That does panels.
Yep.
And he kind of looked at the room, measured it, and was like, "Hey, man, I got a bunch of panels back, in my warehouse that someone just basically returned."
Yeah.
And so I ended up with all these panels that were like half the cost.
Oh, nice.
And he was able to bring them in, put them up, and it's not a perfect room. It was really just about getting in quick and getting to work. And then over time, I would perfect the room, you just kind of figure out what you need. Like, oh, okay, we need some bass traps here, maybe a cloud.
Right.
Maybe if we move furniture around, it will create some different, stuff like that. So it's been a work in progress, about 5 years to get that room,
Golly.
Wow.
perfect.
Yeah.
Just in time to sell the place and get another studio,
5 years just like to acquire the gear, or just to acquire the room sound that you were looking for?
Just to get the room like perfect. I started out with concrete floors in the studio.
Yeah.
Typical garage, floors.
Yeah, which I'm sure sounds great.
And it was awesome. It sounded like Led Zeppelin in there.
Yeah,
the
right.
drums sounded huge, but they were a little too big. And so eventually we brought in, engineered hardwoods. So just a lot of little things to get that room to sound good. But the gear I've been collecting for 20 years.
Yeah, right.
I've had gear since I was like 13 years old. Started out with little Fostech 8-channel MR8, recorders, burning CDs, running to the car and back.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of digital recorders growing up, and then I finally went to Pro Tools in 2004, I think it was. So I've been on Pro Tools long time.
It's OG.
What version of Pro Tools is that?
I started on, well, they used to call it Pro Tools LE. I think I started on Pro Tools 5.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was yeah. So I came from the days of trying to basically record a bass guitar, then record an acoustic guitar, and then I had to bounce the bass and the acoustic guitar down to one channel so I could get more channels to track electrics. And, you know, because it was only an 8-channel recorder.
Right.
And your creativity is, you know, you get ideas. You're like, I want more layers, and you run out of channels. So you have to keep bouncing things down, kind of like how the Beatles did. Except
That's what I was thinking.
and then you burn it to a CD, and then you're running to the car and listening to the mix. Oh, it sucks. Got to run back, burn another CD. So eventually you buy CDRWs so you can keep erasing them.
Yep.
So I did that for years. And then when I got Pro Tools, I mean, the game changed, you know. This was like the early days of like Waves plugins.
That's so crazy. 2004?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sound too, like that sounds strangely recent for like that kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
it's about 20 years ago.
yeah, Pro Tools was wild. I mean, what was it, like 98 or 99 that Pro Tools came out? Or
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of after they perfected it.
yeah.
But see, when I got Pro Tools, I just got the software, and I had this thing called a Digi 001,
Okay.
and then I had a Digi 002, which was basically their Avid's or Digidesign back in the day, Digidesign's interface that was for Pro Tools, and you had to use a Digidesign or Avid now interface in order for it to work with Pro Tools. This was before they went native.
Yeah.
And so I had a 001, then I had a 002, then I had a 003, and then eventually they went native, and then I was able to start getting into like the Apollo, you know, world and things like Apogee. And but yeah, I started kind of early on. But when I first got Pro Tools, I didn't know how to use it because computer recording was new to me. So I immediately went to trade school. So I went to this school called Pro Media Training, which was Pro Tools school.
Was that here in Nash?
Yeah, it was on Music Row through Pro Media, and it was
Cool.
basically
Interesting.
Pro Tools training to get certified.
Yeah.
At the time, back in 2005, when I did this, I was the youngest in the whole United States to get certified in Pro Tools.
Sure.
There was all these guys that were like in their 30s in the class, and I was the youngest kid. I was like 15 years old, got the certification. I was the youngest at the time. Now there's kids getting certified at like age 5. It's crazy. Like my son's already knows how to kind of hit space bar, and
Oh, cool.
Wow.
you know, he's
Nice.
4 years old.
I love it. He could be the next youngest to adopt Pro Tools.
Man, some of these
Certificate.
kids are learning real young now.
Yeah.
There's some crazy TikToks out there
Yeah.
of just like kids that are making some fire beats out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 6-year-olds
Yeah, it's
producing.
comical to see.
Like I came home from work and my son had made this beat. And you're like, what?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do that in high school.
I didn't help him at all.
yeah.
Sure. Okay. I got you. Can you get the certificate online?
Yeah, like, so now you could probably go on and do it online. I don't know a whole lot about it now because I've just been in the kind of the
Yeah.
real world working, you know. But
Yeah.
but back when I was 15, it was like you go to the school, you sit in a classroom for like on and off for 6 months straight.
Yeah.
So it's 6 months. You go like once or twice a week. You know, you're constantly, you know, learning things from the instructor. They have different things like mix courses. They had like a mix course with Ed C at the time. Guys like Justin Niebank. So you're like learning from all these guys as a young kid with all these Music Row professionals, right? And so it's pretty cool. You get the certification one at a time. Mix course, Pro Tools Editing 101, Pro Tools Editing like 202, they called it. You know, then they have like a class on Beat Detective, which I mean, I don't even use Beat Detective anymore.
I don't even know what it is.
I mean, there was all this stuff that's obsolete now. So the certification was cool at the time, but really you don't really learn everything about Pro Tools until you just dive in.
Million %. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to just learn over time because those certifications don't even apply to what I do now because Pro Tools looks completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool to
Yeah.
kind of start.
It's a good
early on,
foundation
you know?
to get, you know, to have that just to kind of know the fundamentals. So when I got Pro Tools, I just got Pro Tools because I heard that's what you're supposed to get, and I didn't really know anything about it. And so I was just like, and this was like just before YouTube started to really take off with like a lot of informational stuff. You know,
Yeah.
like it was this is like 2015. Like you couldn't find a whole lot even
Yeah.
then on YouTube. And it was just like poking around in the dark, trying to figure stuff out. And then I went and interned at a studio, and I was like, that like sped up my process just because I was seeing all these crazy like key commands and stuff. And so that's cool that you had that.
Yeah, I
that
mean,
sort of background.
I would go to class basically and learn something, and then the internet was a big part of learning. I would go home, a 15-year-old kid. I'm 35 now, so it's a long time ago. But like, I would come home, and I would literally go to YouTube, and I would try to look up what they were talking about in class and watch videos, because there was guys early on YouTube that were doing Pro Tools videos. Back in those days, Waves Audio actually was a huge resource at the time. They used to do like these long form videos with like their plugins. This was like the early days of Waves plugins when everyone was cracking them and stuff, and they had all the cracked versions that were floating around. But like basically we'd go home, watch a video of someone producing a song, learn what they're talking about. Okay, here's how you beat detective drums. Learn watch a whole video on it, go back to class next week, and then blow everyone out of the water. Here's what I learned. So the internet was huge. It was like we were right on the cutting edge of, technology being available on YouTube, mixed with the Pro Tools course. It was kind of a dangerous,
combo
way to learn Pro Tools. Lots of resources out there. But like I said, now it's all changed,
Yeah.
It's all just different now. I mean, Pro Tools looks different.
Oh yeah. Looks different than when I started using it, and that wasn't like crazy long ago.
I don't use it, so it looks different every time for me.
Well, yeah, Pro Tools in the beginning everything was on, CDRs. You would put it in to install Pro Tools.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now you download it.
Or like they would have the flash drive, like Fruity Loops.
Yeah,
yeah. Get the flash drive to install it. I love it.
It took forever to install it from the disk. Too.
Yeah. I've always wondered about that, like the way things worked back then, because it seems like the old way of doing things was you would go to school to learn how to audio engineer just to be kind of validated, and then you could apply for an internship to work at some like big studio at like Sony or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then that was the way things worked back when like Music Row was the thing. But now it seems like the way you learn it is the way you learn it, whether it's through a friend or whether it's 100% through YouTube. And then you don't apply to Sony anymore. You want to start your own deal, like what you did.
Yeah.
Like you want to start your own studio so you can have a little bit more control over the clients that you get, your schedule, and just being able to work with people that you're more interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I started the studio kind of out of, I don't know, just convenience. I wanted to be able to wake up and make music, and I didn't want to have to go anywhere, know. And it's always been in the house from a young age. From 15, I had great parents that allowed me to have a studio when I was 15. But my dad was a musician too; he was a guitar player. So
cool.
We kind of shared like a musical passion, where it was like, "Hey, you want to record me, and I'll record you." And
cool.
He would play on early records, and but yeah, I had good parents that allowed me to have a studio like in my room, bedroom studio at 15. But growing up, it was just about keeping the cost down, the convenience of, low overhead, not being able to go, spend all this money to track a guitar, convenience of being able to have it right there. But I started out, working in a lot of studios as a runner, just making coffee, Ocean Way, Blackbird, what's that one? Starstruck, worked there for a little bit.
Cool.
But it was I moved on real quick from the whole runner thing, because it was like one guy was like, "Hey, can you edit some files for me?" I was like, "Sure. Yeah, I'll edit those." And then before you know it, now you're, tracking a vocal for a producer.
Yeah.
So you just kind of move from, runner to assistant, to having your own studio. And then pretty soon it turns into a business. And that's kind of what happened. But it wasn't until 2020 when I really built the studio out full force in the garage.
Yeah.
That's when the business was really successful.
Yeah.
Having it all right there at home, bigger room, could track, mix, do vocals. But I still do a lot of my tracking at other studios. Like I'll go to drummers' rooms, you know, to get drums. I'll track drums at, you know, Ocean Way if we want a bigger sound. It depends on what the client wants, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure the budget too. Do you work with labels to get clients also? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we do things with labels. Really depends on, a lot of times the artist will find the producer first, and then they're attached to a label. So, you know, you go out to writer nights, you meet, you know, songwriters that are maybe on the cusp of getting a deal, and then you start doing their demos for them. And then you get a call from a label saying, hey, we love that demo. And we don't think it needs to be recorded. And then the demo ends up becoming the release.
Right.
You know, because everything that I do is not, I don't ever do a demo like, oh, I'm just going to half-ass this demo. I treat every demo like it's
just the demo. I don't know, man.
Like it's a record. There's no such thing to me as a demo. A demo is just.
I love that. Yeah, we had a masterclass with Austin Cannon. That's the first time I heard someone say that. It's like there's no such thing as a demo. Like
there isn't anymore. If someone says, hey, I just want to do a demo, that means that they want to pay you less for you to work your butt off on something. So what I do is I treat everything like it's going to go to radio or it's going to go to TV. Because you just never know. Like that's how you get some of your biggest.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff from the demo is going to make it to the final version too. Like there's a lot of, like I've watched a lot of like breakdowns of Brittany Howard's stuff with Sean Everett.
Yeah,
and he's like, I don't know, it was from the demo. It sounded really good, so I kept it.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no difference between demo quality and record quality. The only difference is how much budget did you have? To do it? Did you hire great players? I mean, a lot of these demos, we're using guys like Aaron Sterling, Tim Denbo, big time players on these demos, but they sound like records, you know? And so I don't really like the word demo. If someone says demo, it usually means like, I have less budget. Can you do it for less money? I'm like, let's just listen to the song. Let's hear it. Like, sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, let's just make a record, you know?
Right.
That's what we try to do. So,
yeah, the budget thing is always, that must have changed too over time because Music Row is gone, you know?
Yeah.
Like, budgets have to be a completely different deal.
Yeah, but I mean, the budgets now are kind of like it's the artist funding the project.
Yeah, we work with a lot of DIY artists.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see, like, a lot of them, their studio's also just their house, but they have, they don't have the nicest studio in the world.
Yeah.
So that's their demo. There's a lot of people just like finding a way to record no matter what. Like one of my favorite people right now, Jed Harrelson, we had him on. He just like, it's everything it's in his closet. Yeah. Vocals in his closet, guitars in his closet. Sounds great.
Yeah, his stuff sounds great.
It's amazing.
It's mixed well. His brother mixes everything and records everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell the difference between, a mic'd up Fender, Deluxe or a Kemper Fender Deluxe profile that was perfectly profiled by, like, let's say Michael Britt or, somebody. I mean, all of our guitar sounds that we're doing, we have Vox amps, we have a couple Fender amps mic'd up with like a Cascade Fathead and a 57 or a Royer 121 and a 57. But they're just collecting dust over in the corner because we're using Kemper profilers now for guitars. We're using, even some of the old Line 6 stuff. The Line 6 pod stuff sounds great. I mean, you can't tell.
Pod amp models,
but mostly Kemper. It's all Kemper now for guitars. We even run sometimes the bass through it, because there's bass profiles. So
you can just go download the profiles online, right?
Yeah, you just get them right off the rig manager.
Yeah,
and Michael Britt profiles. I'll just plug him. Michael Britt is like the guy you want to be able to, get his profiles if you can, because he's got all the amps in Nashville from like Brad Paisley, Keith Urban.
Oh, cool.
His own amps. He's just modeling or profiling everything. So he's literally profiling some of the best amps, and they're all available. So there's no need to really mic up an amp anymore these days. It's just kind of like, I don't know. It's to me, it's a waste of time because, how many times did you put your head up against the amp, trying to move the mic around and pushing the assistant in there. Yeah. You move the mic left and right, and then it still doesn't sound like a real tight, in-your-face direct guitar.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not as, I don't know. For me, I mean, this song we're going to dive into is all Kemper guitars.
Really?
God,
do you ever mess around with a Kemper profile, but then running that through a live cab just to get a little bit more of the like real life or whatever sound, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is sometimes we'll run the Kemper, you know, to a head, or to like a cab in the other room, and sometimes we'll mic that. But it's kind of weird because the Kemper is meant to, you know, use the built-in amp cabinets that are in there,
right?
And so
it's already a little bit profiled.
Yeah, you'll kind of get. It's just not really meant to work that way. You're meant to just use the profile, run it, you know, right in, and tweak it a little bit. What's great though is adding a pedal board in front of the Kemper.
Yeah.
If you put a pedal board in front of it, now you can drive into the Kemper and put your effects and stuff, and then let the guitar player kind of, you know, get his sound, but you're just giving him a great amp. Yeah. Like every great studio we go to, you know, a guitar player shows up with his rig, and there's always a house amp that's in there, sitting there, that he'll just sometimes use, right? And he's not changing that amp in that room. Right. It's just set. And but he's changing things on his pedal board. So that's kind of how I use the Kemper. It's just, you know, I'll find like a good versatile amp, like a, you know, Princeton or something, or a Bandmaster, or maybe a Vox, you know, and just say, hey, what do you think about this for this part we're working on?
Right.
And then he'll dial his guitar and pedal board to that amp. And a lot of times we're just running with that. Yeah. And then once we get to the next part, maybe he wants to do a delay thing or something next, I'll switch through profiles and go, what do you think about this one? And so he's kind of playing to the profile. Yeah. He's like adjusting his guitar volume, you know, his tube screamer or whatever, his rat pedal, whatever it is, to that profile. So instead of me dialing the Kemper and changing it, I'm just leaving it. Yeah. Just, you know, I'll give him kind of a gain that is appropriate for the part. Right. But he's dialing the sound to that profile. And we've gotten some killer tones doing that.
That's cool. It's cool because you can have more variety in each individual guitar part, but you're cutting out some of the variables of like miking up different amps with different speakers and stuff. Like you're taking that sound right there. You're probably coming with around the same output volume for each one. And like there's some control in there while also getting to be able to, okay, we're going to do a Princeton on the verse and then a Marshall on the chorus and have it feel somewhat cohesive still.
Yeah, it's so fast, man. I mean, you're just clicking through amps and you can find what you're looking for faster than you could go move another amp in and bring. And then mic it. By the time you bring in mics and you're moving all the stuff around, you kind of like lost, like, okay, what's the chords of the song again? What's what's
you
the
lose
song
out of it.
You know, you're out of the creative zone. So so these tools like Kempers and being able to go direct with stuff, it just speeds up the process. For sure. Like I never change my drums like in my studio. They're always mic'd up with 12 mics. They never change. Sometimes I'll move the room mics like a little bit like left or right, a little wider or closer in, or sometimes I'll just get rid of one and do a mono. Yeah. But I never change the kick, the snare, the overheads, the toms. It's just always ready to go. That way I don't have to think about it. Right. If I want a different snare sound, swap the snare.
What do you like to use mic-wise?
So I got a deal with a company called 80K.
Oh, I guess I knew that. Yeah.
And 80K was really nice to send me a bunch of mics about 4.5 years ago to try everything they had out. Yeah. And once they sent it to me, it was like, holy crap. Like, I'm never going to have to think about mics again. Yeah. Because they basically clone or model. He doesn't like the word clone, but model every vintage mic out there, like 87, 67, 47. You know, they have C12 clones. They have, and this stuff sounds literally as good, but for, you know, half the price. Yeah. I mean, it's still expensive. Some of their mics are like $3,000, $4,000, you know, $5,000. There's some for $700-800. But so on the drums, we have a D112 inside the kick drum. In the drum. We have a kind of a hole in the front, a little bit of a towel in there. So D112 is in the drum. Then we have a 80K. It's like a FET 47 clone.
Yeah.
Outside of the kick drum. And then we have a blanket that goes from the bass drum over to kind of like an ottoman in the room, create like a little drum tunnel.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So basically the kick drum mics are just a little bit more enclosed.
Yeah. Get the cymbals out of there a little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll get rid of the blanket if like we're, just trying to create more room in the, space in the room. But 57 on the snare. Then we have a hypercardioid pencil mic duct taped to the snare drum.
Classic.
On top of the snare drum. So if we want to like use the 57 or the hypercardioid mic, we can kind of pick one, or we could use both.
Is it like a 451 type?
Yeah, it's
thing?
like a 451, literally right next to
that's a great combo.
Same distance. What do we have on the bottom? I think it's a KM 84.
Oh, cool.
Under the snare.
Nice.
Flip the phase on that. MD 421s on the toms.
Have you seen the new mini 421s that came out?
Yeah, those are cool.
Those
I
gonna be
didn't
so
see
excited.
that. How did I miss that?
They're little mini clip-on
little-
421s and not this ginormous like foot-long mic that you gotta prop
That's
up.
hilarious.
Yeah, those are, man, I love all this new stuff that's coming out. I mean,
It
it's
gets me so excited.
it's like you could geek out on this stuff. And then, C12s for the overheads, but they're 80K C12s. And then for the rooms, we have old Nady RSM, I think RSM2 ribbon mics are these gold mics. They're about $200 on Amazon.
Okay.
I don't even know if they make them anymore, but I have two of them in stereo, and I can kind of move them kind of in or wider. Sometimes I'll go up with them, but I try to keep them kind of low.
Yeah.
Because you get more low end if they're like lower to the ground.
Yeah.
And like 6 feet in front of the kit. Sometimes they'll come back and forward a little bit. And then I'm trying to think what else. Oh, sometimes we'll turn on the 251, the vocal mic.
Yeah.
Telefunken 251 in the booth, and we'll just shut the door and let it reflect in the vocal booth.
Yeah.
So it's like an ambience mic. And I'll just record that as like a distance mic and kind of blend it in. But
That's cool.
most of this stuff will end up getting muted in the mix anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just recording it all to have it.
Yeah, just in case.
Most of the time, it's literally just the kick, snare, overheads, and then we're putting trigger in there and trying to get some big ass country snare drum.
Like a shotgun going off.
Literally, it doesn't even sound like a snare drum. It sounds like a gunshot.
Yeah.
That's every
That's what you
country
need.
record.
Yeah.
And you can't get that sound unless you trigger it.
You gotta do you gotta be doing triggers.
Do you ever mess around with like a kit mic or a mono overhead to blend in, or do you? keep it
Yeah.
pretty stereo?
Sterling's all over his mono overhead.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate about 4 months ago to have Tom Petty's drummer, Steve Ferroni,
Oh, nice.
come to my room, which
Yeah.
was like, I mean, that is
Wow.
the drummer that
You're,
I
like, geeking
literally, I
out.
could die tomorrow. I told my wife this, I could die tomorrow and be totally fine. Like I got to work with Steve Ferroni, but he loves, kind of old school stuff like mic over the shoulder.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we had two stereo overheads, but then we had one over the drummer's shoulder. And that was kind of like the mono room.
Yeah.
And then we also do a crotch mic.
Yeah.
A SM7B kind of pointed down at the bass drum.
Oh, cool.
I learned that from a guy named Paul Mayberry, who's a big Christian drummer. But it's basically an SM7 pointed down at the bass drum, and then you just mangle the hell out of it.
Yeah.
With like 1176, and it just gives it this
Slam it.
pointy kind of drum sound that you can just blend in. And sometimes I'll use the crotch mic for just like, the loop mic, like if he's doing like a like a loopy thing.
Yeah.
Like I'll use the crotch mic for like this loopy drum sound.
Just pull everything else out and just.
And then when the chorus hits, the full kit comes in.
Yeah,
the mix,
that's cool.
So that's why we record all those mics, so we can create different textures from section to section.
Yeah, that you wouldn't have thought of beforehand. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Necessary.
Or I might sample it later for another song. There's a million songs where I'll take the drums out from someone's song and I'll write another song to those drum tracks,
Oh
Right.
yeah, there was a song that I think Reverb did like a drum recreation of.
Let's
that was,
go. I love those videos.
Yeah, those are great videos. There was a song that was a similar thing. I want to say it was like a Steely Dan song. They took the drums from another song and then slowed them down and then wrote to those drums.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And so they
There's
broke
artists-
down how they like slowed
There's
it
an
down.
artist that'll ask me like, hey, can we like take the drums from, my last single and just like write another song to it? Because they want to keep like a similar style
Sure.
going. Like they want like maybe the same groove for another song, but they want to write a different song to it. And the drums inspire them to write.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, we don't ever leave like, the acoustics in and stuff because they don't sound like the same progression. But, but the drums, if it's a good beat, I mean, might as well. I mean, get your money's worth out of that drum set.
Right. Save yourself some time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, do we want to jump in here and see kind of
let's-
what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me.
I assume these drums were sort of recorded. You got to do something.
Yeah, let's do it. You're good to keep going if you want.
Were these drums pretty much recorded
Yeah.
with that type of configuration that we were just
Yeah, so this
talking about?
song we're going to listen to here is a song called Bourbon Warfare by a great artist named Kaylin Cole, who's killing it right now. She's just everywhere, like doing tours. And
Nice.
but she brought me 6 songs in very rough form. Like she played them on an acoustic guitar, some were just on piano. And she's like, I want to make this EP called Bourbon Warfare. And it was a great. Oh, it's coming on.
Is
Oh,
it playing?
No, you're good.
Was that loud too?
No, it sounds good.
Okay. I'm just gonna make sure this works. You're good.
Yeah, it's a great great project because it was just basically her and her guitar, and she didn't kind of know what she wanted the production to sound. She had some ideas of like artist, Colby Calais, a little bit of Dell influence in there, but she wanted it to be country and have kind of this,
Some twang.
modern country thing. So basically, it was just trying to figure out how can we make this country, but also how can we keep it kind of in more of the pop style that she's going for. So we started out with just a piano, and then we kind of built from there. Loop drums, brought in a drummer. Drummer comes in the chorus. So I chose this song because it's a good example of how a song is arranged from, it starts here, and then it gets to here, and then in the chorus it's here, and then it kind of comes down a little bit, and then it gets a little bit bigger, and then we strip it completely out in the breakdown, and then it gets huge where everything is just in and dancing, by the end. But a lot of that wasn't played that way. A lot of these players, like this song actually had drums in right from the beginning.
Oh, interesting.
Like drummers right in. And so what I'm trying to do with this production is start it kind of almost like an Adele type song where it's like just piano and voice, and then it's building. And music's supposed to do this. It's supposed to kind of start here, get here.
Dynamics.
Some people.
We've been talking about
Yeah,
that.
that's good information.
Yeah.
For some people, yeah.
Yeah, I mean
The importance of dynamics is so crucial.
There's not, a lot of producers and engineers don't realize this. They're just trying to put everything in their productions.
Yeah.
Because they
They
paid
want it to
for
sound like full the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, they think because they paid for it, they have to use it, or they're going to insult a player. These players are great. They want to be edited. They'll play tons of licks, but they're like, hey, man, I'm just going to give you a lot of cool stuff, but your job as the producer is to go in and mute stuff. If you don't, you'll get a letter from them down there. Hey, man, like the fiddle player is stepping on my licks, or I'm stepping on the fiddle player. He's playing something cool. Like I should have been there,
Well, you gave me the track, man.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of cuts. You'll see, like I just drop the keys out completely in the turnaround.
Creating space.
I got the piano. I mean, I had like drums in, bass in from the top. So I'm kind of building things slowly, and cutting in and out. Yeah, let's give it a listen.
Yep. Yeah, you're good to go with it.
Oh yeah, I'm running ship today. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's take a listen here. I think we got a 4-bar roll.
Yeah.
My heart beats fast when you talk slow, and it's late at night and you're just getting home. I can see it in your eyes, I can smell it on your words. They cut like a knife, 'cause you know where it hurts. And this bourbon warfare, nobody wins. I didn't sign up to fight in this battle that we're in. I don't wanna be another late night casualty, so you'll have to choose Jim Beam or me. What's it gonna be?
Let's see.
My grandmother's lace that she brought back from Rome.
Yeah, so I mean, you see it starts with piano, and then its vocal comes in. There's like a little bit of a pad in the back. And then right in the chorus, there's like a cymbal swell into a boom hit. But the drummer is really not in. He's just kind of playing time, and he wasn't actually playing that. He came in full groove. I had to kind of cut up a kick
Oh, really?
and a hat to make this.
Okay, so you like brought that in and looped a little bit?
Yeah,
for
I just
that
took
section?
a boom. I was trying to like simulate like the drummer in the church, where it's like, it's just creating time,
Yeah.
because it's like like kind of got a little bit of an R&B sound. This song, I don't know if you're picking up on that. It's a little bit R&B, country.
Yeah.
A little bit of. It's like Adele meets. I don't know. She's got her own sound, honestly.
sure.
It's-
Yeah, the kick drum is very Adele to me.
yeah, it's kind of the
And
kind of the
grand
influence.
piano in there. Was that done at your place?
Yeah, all this was tracked right at my place. So the piano is it's a Nord with just a great sample. We use Keyscape a lot,
Yeah.
and there's some great pianos in there. And then we use a lot of native instruments, piano sounds. We'll switch through. There's Alicia Keys. There's the
Yeah.
the Maverick. All those different ones. We're just clicking through them, and then we'll kind of sound design the piano sound after it's played because everything's in MIDI.
Right.
So we'll lay it in. And this is David Dorn, great keyboard player. He's played on like Kelsey Ballerini, Maren Morris. Let's take a listen to his part here.
Yeah.
It's very, very soulful what he's playing.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a huge thing. It's just who you have playing it.
Yeah, he's just playing really nice, like, kind of lower voicings. It's not like super high. It's very Adele, like Adele's Hello or, those type of songs. He's just keeping it real simple. So I thought that needs to be featured. We had like a ton of stuff in right there. But I was like, no, just piano and voice, kind of tell the story. The song's about, this warfare of like two people, this bourbon warfare, So I wanted the lyrics to really come through there. And the way you do that is by getting rid of shit.
Yeah.
And just let the voice and the whatever. I'm trying to go for it as little as shit as possible in the beginning. That way we have somewhere to go. Because if you have everything in, then you have nowhere to go. And sometimes just having two things in is too much. It's like the ear can only hear, they say, three things at one time. So, if you add those things up, you got piano and voice. So we have piano and vocal, but there's also, let's see if we can blow these tracks up so we can kind of see what's going on. I'm going to select all these, do a key command here, go large. All right, so let's listen to the piano here. So we have piano,
It sounds like
and then we
there's
have this
some sort of,
atmospheric
yeah.
thing going on.
Heart beats fast
Yeah, it's just some,
when you talk
but then it drops
slow.
out.
And it's late at night.
As soon as she
and
comes
you're
in, it
just
comes out.
getting home. I can see it in your eyes. I can smell it on your words. They cut like a knife, 'cause you know where it hurts. And this bourbon warfare.
So, the steel kind of winds into the chorus. That's how you here's the chorus, you know?
Yeah.
Because if you don't,
You feel it coming.
the average listener is just going to go, what's the chorus? I hate it when someone says, what's the chorus? What's the verse?
Yeah.
You know, and it happens
know.
with a lot of songs these days where the verse kind of sounds like the chorus because everyone's writing kind of these I call them monotone melodies where like you write a verse melody, but then the chorus doesn't really jump up an octave. It's just kind of in the same range.
Yeah.
So as a producer, you're trying to figure out, now this song is really well written. She kind of jumps up, she's kind of low, and then she jumps up. And I just wanted to feature her voice with the piano. And then when the chorus hit, the steel kind of leads us in.
This bourbon wine.
So the steel leads us in. Nice little into a chorus boom hit.
It's huge.
Yeah, what is it? Was it?
Oh yeah, that's what I was before I cut myself off, and I was like, we have to
Oh,
wait
yeah,
for the
that's right.
podcast. Where are you getting those sounds from?
Yeah, so what that is, that's just a reverse cymbal.
Yeah.
Basically, I take a cymbal, reverse into a cymbal crash, so it's two sounds, but then the boom hit is just a big like taiko orchestral drum that I have because I do a lot of video game music. So, you know, it's
We never talked about that. I feel like we totally skipped over because you have this whole not other world, but you're pretty well
A different
versed
lane
in,
that you're also active in.
yeah, video games and
yeah, so I mean we could skip real quick to that and just kind of give everyone a
Yeah, we
little,
don't have to derail.
a little piece. But I mean, like the first part of my day, like from 9 until about 1 o'clock, is doing video games for corporate companies.
Oh, that's so cool.
You know, a lot of slot machines. We do a lot of mobile games. We've done some AAA stuff. You know, we've done like TV, film type things. So I do a lot of orchestral sound design and a lot of hybrid sound design where we're using a lot of like boom hits, and I'm doing a lot of like just programming with like, you know, cellos and things like that. So I'm always trying to incorporate sounds from that world into country music. It's nothing new. Everybody's been doing it. Keyboard players have been putting boom hits and things in a lot of the country records, but that's kind of what that is. It's basically a big hit you would hear like in a Hans Zimmer film.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's like the last hit of Lion King, you know, right?
Yeah.
When it's like,
I'm pretty sure a Dune
And it's a
scene
little
like
crunchy.
started with that.
And
hear
it's
the
got like
crunchies?
delays to it too. It's like God.
It sounds a bit like
yeah,
Sounds
so
like
I put a H delay on it
Cool.
to give it a little, just to
Yeah.
kind of make it feel
Just hold it.
like a little more interesting. And then it's got decapitator on it, saturation to just kind of mangle it a little bit. When you listen to it in the mix, it sounds pretty cool.
Cause you know where it hurts. This bourbon warfare.
So
It doesn't
cool.
sound as scary when it's in there.
Yeah.
When you solo it, it sounds like Jurassic Park.
yeah.
It just makes it sound huge though. What's going on, everybody? I'm interrupting the podcast because I've finally launched what I've been talking about on this podcast for a very long time, Groove MPL, Groove Music Production Lessons. This website is focused on two main things: how you can use Ableton on stage as playback, and independent music producers in Nashville. How do they do it? How do they get clients? How do they work out the contracts? So every month there's a new course available on the site, and we got courses like Adam Leeds diving into how he has been able to produce for just monster artists here like Starlito, Young Buck, and a bunch of different artists. We got the drummer from Maggie Rose, Timothy Burkhead, showing how he uses Ableton and his SPD pad to control the live show and have it run seamlessly. Austin Cannon, who's breaking down how do the contracts work between you and the artist. These courses really are here because they cover topics that are hard to find, and they're important topics that are necessary to get you from point A to point B. That information in between shouldn't be hard to find, and having it in one central location I think is super important, so I'm very excited to share it with you all. Again, you can sign up at groovempl.com with the discount code GGP for Garden Groove Podcast, and you'll get 50% off your first month. I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
Well, what's cool is if you put that with the drums. So if we listen to that with, like, for instance, the steel guitar, maybe let's throw the dobro in there and the bass and the drums. Let's leave the loop out. Then it hits again, see? Just so it wasn't like completely out of nowhere. You know, you just gotta say, hey, here I am again. And then it hits right on the turnaround. Now, I almost left it out of that turnaround, but I felt like it needed it because the drums were gonna go away until they come in. So it's like... And then there's this loop here.
It's my favorite part.
And basically I'm using this plugin called Brower Motion. It's a Waves plugin. And I'm just, basically it's a preset where it goes left. It's like a ping pong thing. And so it's
like an auto panner kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it with several different kinds of plugins, but it's just panning the loop left and right. But this loop was actually a full frequency loop, like, you know, with it had hi-hats and stuff in it. What I did was I EQ'd it with Fab Filter all the way down to like, I don't know, 500 hertz or something. So it's just low end. I'm doing a lot of that where I'm just rolling off stuff to get it out of the way of the vocal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can't have all these, I mean, we're arranging the song, but EQ is kind of like arranging too. Because if you cut high end off of stuff, now you can have an additive element like a loop come in the chorus. But it doesn't sound like a loop. It's just like a little percolating thing that's in the background because it's been EQ'd. You know, it's now the hi-hats and the drums can poke out. So if you listen to the drums with the loop.
Yeah.
So now the hi-hats speak, but the loop is kind of in its own frequency range. So now you can hear it. But if you leave all that high-end content on the loop, then it gets in the way of the drums. So that's kind of what I'm doing is I'm just trying to create some rhythmic interest, but not take over with the loop.
Yeah, just like a little bit more movement in there.
Yeah.
Sitting underneath that drum beat.
Yeah, because the drummer's playing real like, he's real just on the grid.
Yeah.
So when you put the loop in there, now it gives it more swing.
Yeah.
Kind of that R&B stuff you were talking about too, like a little funkier.
Yeah. You know, it's cool because you can have that in there without, like the old school thing would have like an electric guitar player going like, ding, ding, ding,
yeah, right.
Ding, 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 you know what I mean?
Makes it a little more questionable, like where the groove is for the average listener.
Yeah, the guitar would have been kind of the cheesy choice.
Yeah.
So that's where the loop kind of...
This urban warfare, nobody wins. I didn't sign up to fight.
You know, and she's saying I dance, right? So the loop kind of gives it that.
Yeah, I like that.
Gives it that feel. It's all emotions, you know. We're just trying to find things that kind of work but stay out of the way.
How are you approaching your kick sounds? I'm unpleased with my kick sounds lately. And this sounds very good. Because there's like air to it. You can hear like an airy roomness to it, but there's obviously a clear attack to it. You get the resonance.
Yeah, I mean, every drum sounds different, you know, across records. But again, it's just it's like a, you know, I think it's a DW kit on this song. In the room, big garage, 27 by 28 room, high ceilings, like 15-foot ceilings. You know, hard floors, a little bit of rug. It's just a really well-tuned kit.
Yeah.
With a great drummer that knows how to play like to the mics.
Yeah, not overplay and
like I'll get drummers like that come in that are like big punk rock basher type drummers.
Right.
And the kick drum will sound completely different than like, for instance, if like Sterloid or like Sean Fichter, like Sean Ficter's one of my favorite drummers in town. He'll come in and he just knows how to play the right volume
to let it resonate. Yeah, there's a certain point, there's like a threshold to every drum sound that like you hit it, and it depends on the type of head that you got too, but you keep hitting and you keep hitting, and at a certain point, it's just like that's the
You're choking it
maximum
out.
resonance and sound. Yeah, you're choking it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
you're
craps
choking
out.
the microphones too.
Yeah, he knows how to play. Good drummers know how to play to the mics, and I'm setting the levels to that drummer. So the drums always stay set up with the same mics, kind of like we talked about earlier. But sometimes the preamp gains will change depending on the drummer. But I never change the preamps because I spent years trying to figure out my drum sound that I wanted that worked for me.
Yeah.
So why would I change that? I mean, I'd just be. I mean, sometimes, like I said, I'll experiment with room mics or like maybe the mono room thing.
Right.
But I'm not messing around with like the kick drum mic or the snares or the placement of where the hi-hat mic is. It's just keep it set up so we can get the job done. Because in Pro Tools, we can change.
You can mangle it so much.
Yeah, we could replace the whole snare drum.
Right.
Like every drummer that comes to my room, I sample them. Like when Steve Ferroni came, he brought a cartridge rig from LA of all of his snare drums. He had Black Beauties. He had like Pearls, Ludwigs, Slingerlands. He had Gretsch. He had his Steve Ferroni signature drum. We sampled all of his drums.
Smart.
And different velocities of him hitting them.
Oh, wow.
Crack, rim. So I have all of, his drums. So if I'm like, I'll throw in that one, see what it sounds like with Trigger, Steven Slate, all of a sudden I got a new snare sound, but I didn't have to change anything over here. So
Cool.
at the end of the day, no one really cares about, how you got the drum sound. They just care about if they like it or not.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I think there's a sample. No, that's a real. Let's listen to the snare.
It's a great room sound too.
Yeah, love it.
Is in the ground in this house that don't feel like a home. Can't put it back together.
Put it with the bass. It's just a real drum sound,
Ugh.
real drums in a room. It's got that kind of R&B thing going on. And
Do you have any reverb on that snare, or is that all from the room mics?
I think on this one, I wish we would have the full session here, but I think it was probably mostly the room mics. But I always have like an EMT 140 plate.
Yeah.
I have this thing called from Sound Toys. It's called the Little Plate.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just a one knob, got a little high pass filter on it.
Yep.
Oh, that's nice.
That's always set up to send vocals to it. I'm a pretty simple guy when it comes
Is
to
that what you're
reverb.
putting your vocals to for this?
I use Little Plate a lot just because I'm trying to keep a reverb that is small enough to where I can get a little bit of space,
Yeah.
but not say like, hey, here's a big ass reverb.
Yeah.
And so I use Little Plate a lot. I use Valhalla too, like Valhalla Room, Valhalla Vintage
Yeah.
Verb.
Mm-hmm.
The GUIs on those things just are so bad looking that I can't.
Sure.
You don't like them?
Sorry.
Yeah, the plugin's got to be sexy to me.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at it.
Sound Toys looks good. Sure.
It's nice,
Yeah.
But I'll use Valhalla sometimes if I can't get something out of that Little Plate.
Yeah.
And then I use Echo Boy for delays, H delay.
Yeah.
Um,
Because this verb sounds, the vocal verb was the very first thing I noticed. It's just like, it's perfectly there.
yeah, let's take a listen to that. I kind of forgot how it sounds. And I think there's a delay on the vocal too.
That's Little Plate.
Let's listen to the second verse.
My grandmother's vase that she brought back from Rome. It's in peace.
Let's listen to the first verse.
My heart beats fast when you talk slow. And it's late at night and you're just getting home. I can see.
She can hear her. She's got her headphones. She's singing like right in the freaking room. A lot of times singers, man, she wanted to, she's like a very like awesome singer, one take kind of performer.
Yeah, believe it.
And I think she sang in the room actually, because we were just like, let's just do it.
Yeah,
No headphones.
A lot of that was the scratch vocal.
Sure.
Wow.
A lot of times, this is something actually to touch on. Most of the time, the way I do things is I'll do like pre-production first with the artist, like a day or two before the actual real recording day.
Yeah.
And we'll do like a scratch piano or a scratch acoustic with a click, to the grid, put markers in. And I just bring them in the studio, put them in the vocal booth. I don't like put up some random mic. I always put up the mic that I'm going to put on the singer.
Right.
Usually like the 251 or like a 67. Those are the two mics that I'll if one of those doesn't work, then I just give up because the 67, the 251s
Yeah, if you can't get one of those to sound good,
works on everybody.
Is wrong.
So I put up the mic and I say, let's just record the vocal, and they're not thinking about it. They're like, oh, it's a scratch, But a lot of times that scratch vocal is like the one that I'm going back to in the comp to try to pull in because there's just a lot of emotion there. Mm-hmm. You can't tell an artist that, because if you tell an artist that, they're like, oh no, I could beat it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do. A lot of times they do beat it, but there's sometimes like on first verses or just, little moments maybe in a chorus where they were just in the zone and everything is to the click, everything's to the grid. That's why I'm always just trying to hit record, always trying to capture something, because they might not get that same emotion again because they start to overthink it.
Yep.
And so a lot of this is scratch vocal. And I remember, me and her were comping the vocal together. That's something that I do. I always comp the vocal with the artist, unless they don't want to do that. Some artists are like, I don't want to sit here and do this. But like we'll comp it together, and, we're listening to like 8 takes that were done on like vocal day, which is like 3 or 4 days later. Mm-hmm. And then we got the scratch, but I'll just purposely put the scratch like randomly in.
You hide it in there.
Yeah. It's like take 5 now.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what color it is anymore. It's like, maybe it was pink and now it's green. I basically like Rubik's Cube all the vocals up.
Yeah.
Like I don't like looking at like take 1 through take 8, because a lot of people go, well, go to my later takes. Those are probably the better ones.
Yeah.
No, sometimes take 1 or the scratch vocal. Yeah, so when we're comping, we're listening, and we're just listening to how we can build, the perfect puzzle from start to finish. It's like a puzzle, maybe take 1 is, for the verse, and then we'll kind of splice it in some of the scratch vocal. We're not really judging anything. We're not saying like, oh, take 1's better than, we're just listening, we're comping the vocal. So a lot of this is a scratch, and that's why like you can hear some headphone bleed, but like in the mix, it doesn't really matter because
they cut like a knife, 'cause you know where it hurts. And this urban warfare, nobody wins. I didn't sign up to fight in this battle that we're in.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's just scratch, mixed in with some of the final vocals. The way we do vocals is some artists like to sing it all the way through. They'll get in the booth and do, like, let me do full takes, I've gotten away from that. I do sections at a time. So I'll do like, I'll record verse 1. Let's get that like 8 times.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we'll skip to like verse 2 because they're kind of in that mindset of like tonally, the verse kind of tonality, the emotion. So we'll skip to verse 2, get 8 takes of that. And then we'll kind of maybe do the bridge or something or a breakdown. And then we'll come back and hit choruses and do all the chorus because now they're warmed up. And then we'll do chorus 2. And sometimes, chorus 2 will end up becoming chorus 1.
Sure.
Like, oh, I like what they're doing on chorus 2 better. So I'll fly that to chorus 1.
Yeah.
And then chorus 3, maybe we do 8 takes of that, but maybe that becomes chorus 2 now. And then maybe I'll copy it again for chorus 3. But then I'll find one little moment where they went up. Because every great song has like that one moment at the end where they go up to the higher melody. Yeah. Especially in country, it's like all the chorus is the same, but at the very end of the song, they'll go up to a higher note and then they'll tag the hook and then it's over. So, I'll try to move some of the interest that happens later in the song, sometimes earlier in the song, because if someone doesn't like the song by chorus 1, they're never going to make it to chorus 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're putting a stronger one at the first. Do you ever or do you almost always record multiple choruses no matter what and then figure it out later?
Yeah, I'm always about 8 takes of every section. That's kind of like my sweet spot, is about 8 takes. Any more than 8 and you're starting to like kind of, now you have a lot to look through when you're comping. Because you're like, you start to listen like as you're toggling through the comps. And the way I do it is, I'll go into playlist, and I'll have all the takes here and I'm looking at different colors, and it's like, if you got 10 or 12, I mean, they all start to sound the same.
Yeah.
So if you have 8, then you can start deleting the bad ones and then narrowing down. That's also how I comp. I'll start deleting the bad stuff.
Really?
And narrowing it down.
or just cutting out like a line here, or
sections, like cutting things out that were bad. So you're narrowing down what to listen to. And then you start building the comp, the puzzle piece, I call it. So you'll end up with some green, some red, some purple, because each take is colorized.
Right.
And that's how we communicate as a producer and artist. They're sitting on the couch and I'll say, okay, let's listen to the vocals. Here's the green take. So I'll hit the space bar and I'll say green. And then they're listening. And then it loops back and they'll say red. And so it's green, red, blue, yellow. And they're like, okay, we get through all 8. And then they go, ooh, I kind of liked yellow. Can I hear yellow again? So then we throw yellow up on the comp. But then, I really like some things from green. So it's very psychological, like
I love that.
Colors with artists, green, yellow, red. And again, the scratch vocal has been purposely mixed into there. We don't call it the scratch anymore. It's just one of the takes. But I kind of notate, is that the scratch? Because I always like to go, how much am I using of the scratch?
Yeah.
It's always really cool to see. And sometimes the scratch is terrible. It's just not as good as their later stuff. But 9 times out of 10, the scratch is in there. And I think that's the case with this song. Right now, it's all purple. But if we actually looked at the vocal comp, there would probably be a lot of colors here, like red, green, yellow.
It's like the scratch happens before they have time to strategize.
Yeah.
How am I going to nail this?
It's raw.
Yeah. It's just
it's also when they're the most like, comfortable with the song. They're just coming in the studio. They're excited about being in the studio. They're excited about their song. As the process continues, an artist will start to second guess themselves and they start to hate their song more.
Yeah.
To the point, sometimes they'll throw it in the trash. They won't even release it because they beat themselves up. So, our job is to stay positive as a producer. It's like try to get to the finish line as quick as possible so the burnout doesn't happen.
Yep.
As soon as the burnout happens with an artist, you've lost them.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have 2 good microphones always set up. And that's how I do it. So I have like a 251 like this, and then a 67 upside down on top of that one with a pop filter in front of both. Recording both. Sometimes I'll reverse it if I know like the 251's the one I want more in the sweet spot. I'll have 2 mics that I'm recording at all times on the singer. So I'm recording 2 mics on them for each song, and I'll just pick the mic that I like for their voice.
Nice.
And so those are always ready to go. The signal chain's always ready. So when they come in the studio, it's like, all right, let's go. All I'm doing is just setting a little bit of levels on like the Neve 1073 or the 1081. And then that goes into like the TubeTech CL1B, or I use a Retro 176, which is badass.
That's like their 1176 kind of thing.
That's what this vocal is. It's a Neumann U67 into a Neve 1073, racked 1073 into a Retro 176.
It's cool.
And it's pretty it's a high dollar chain.
Yeah,
but I don't have to think
chain.
about it now. Now I can just sing.
Yeah.
Just go.
And as soon as you have to like start patching stuff, and the artist is in the booth, they're like
twiddling their thumb.
they're not going to say
texting.
anything, but they're burning out slowly.
Yeah.
So you got to get them singing as fast as possible.
I like that. Just get it out. Rick Rubin has a thing in his book where it's just like there's really something special about the first take. Like it's right when it's coming out. That's where a lot of the emotion is there. And even if you like, we all do it. Like when I would practice for my presentations in school, like I felt like the more I would repeat it, like the less life there was to it, because you knew what was coming. There's less life to it. It's not raw. And I feel like when you're doing takes of a song, it's got to be the same kind of deal. It's like it's the first time through. It's just like you're more connected with the song.
Yeah, I mean,
initially.
Artists, they're like their own worst enemies sometimes. They beat themselves up over like the littlest things. And
Yeah, we both make music, so we like outside of recording people, we do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
We talk about it frequently.
Yeah, we do.
I used to be a huge perfectionist because I started out as a songwriter and an artist. I wanted to be a country artist back when I was 15. I was recording a lot of stuff for myself.
You got the look. You got the country artist look a little bit.
Yeah, not
Been
anymore,
in
man.
Tennessee since 14 years old. It's
Yeah, country's changed a lot, man. Now, but
it's different.
I used to record my own stuff, and I would never get to the finish line. I would re-record that vocal over.
You can go crazy doing it
over again. But now being a producer and on the other side of the glass, it's like I'm trying to just be positive, while they're in the studio, like encourage them. You can't ever get negative for 1 second, because if you get negative, you'll lose the room.
Yeah.
And if you lose the room, you might as well just pack it up for the day and come back another day and try again.
Sure.
So I'm trying to stay positive, keep it really kind of just this friendly environment, make sure we have water, coffee, tea, cough drops.
Yeah, just keep it flowing.
Keep it flowing. Try to get it as quick as possible. And that's where having your chains figured out, not experimenting with mics. It's like we know that a 251, a 67 will do the job.
Right.
There's no need to look. I mean, there's clones of those, and you could use an SM7B. It sounds fine.
Yep.
You're going to be EQing it a little bit more in the mix, but like whatever you can trust, that's what you got to throw up. And also too, singers have preferences. They'll come in, hey, I want to sing on the Neumann, 47 because that's my mic, And so there's that where you're renting mics, and because it's going to work because they like it. But yeah, that's what's going on here. I mean, she's a fantastic singer, so there's not a lot of tuning on her either.
I was wondering about that too.
Yeah, let's take a listen to the breakdown vocal going into the last chorus.
There's bourbon warfare, nobody wins. I didn't sign up to fight in this battle that we're in. I don't wanna be another late night casualty, so you'll have to choose Jim Beam or me. Yeah, you'll have to choose Jim Beam or me. What's it gonna be? Oh, what's it gonna be? That bottle on me.
Hear that delay?
Yeah, right.
Kind of it lingers on the right side a little bit longer. You remember what you used on that?
Yeah, I think I like to kind of automate sometimes my delay, like where I'll kind of pan them a little bit to kind of create interest. It's really just for the audio guys. I mean, like your mom's not going to care about that. You know what I mean? But guys are going to listen to that and go, ooh, like,
and nod to the other people.
It might be that one thing that makes someone want to listen again. And that's the whole point is like, we're trying to be entertaining with this stuff. We're trying to create entertainment.
Right.
So I'm always panning delays and reverbs, and sometimes I'll turn up the reverb returns in the chorus, and then I'll bring them back in the verse. It's like I'm trying to tighten up the vocal sound in the verse, so it's more about the story. And then as the chorus starts to explode, you're turning up all the reverb, so everything's getting wider.
Yeah.
So you can't be afraid to like get in there and automate. And that's why I like to have like control surface in front of me. It's really hard to do that with a mouse.
Yeah.
You can do it. But in the last few years, I've invested in, Avid Artist Mix, had one of those. Now we have the SSL control surfaces.
I just got one.
Yeah, they're sick.
I'm super obsessed with it.
He was very excited when he first got it.
I was really excited about it. I was like, this is the best thing ever.
I mean, you can, just to be able to automate a fader, it's like the old days where you have a console in front of you, except way more recall.
Oh yeah.
But being able to kind of, just kind of go up and down with stuff, it's
tactile
it's a game.
Quality of just being able to touch a fader, and like I want to hear like you're starting a mix, and you're like, I want to hear the kick drum. Okay, turn the kick drum up, and then it's just there. It's like, I don't know. There's something.
Yeah.
Like the response that you get.
Yeah, it
with
removes like the filter of having to look at a screen and root around. It just takes a little bit of that.
Yeah,
out.
as soon as you have to look at a screen and figure out.
Yeah, I hate mixing when
you're trying to ride that and get a smooth ride.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now you're out of the zone. You're no longer creative. You're just like trying to figure out how to get this thing to move smooth. But you have a fader, you can kind of perform your rides. And sometimes I'll perform it several times till I get what I'm going for, and like I'll push it sometimes all the way up just to hear what it's doing, and then erase the automation, and that's, I think a lot of people, they don't really know what a mixer's job is. Like artists, they don't they just go, why am I paying for mixing and mastering? I mean, well, this is weird. So a lot of artists, they know more what mastering is, but they don't know what mixing is. They're like, hey, is this going to get mastered? Because that's the word that everyone knows.
It's the last word.
Because of CD
Is this
Baby.
going to be finished is like what they're getting at.
And they're like, can we just skip the mixing phase and just do mastering? But, you know, so you have to explain to them, well, mastering is more of like, you know, you're taking the 2 mix, you know, and you're trying to polish the 2 mix to get it competitive, loud, you know, punchy, you know, all those things. But they don't even realize that mixing is like kind of all of it. I mean, mixing is
it's the icing.
producing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I make all my decisions. And when I'm tracking, I'm just kind of in the room with players. We're just trying to get everything tracked. We're trying to, you know, see how much we can cram into this session while I got the guys there. And then once they all leave, that's when the real producing starts.
Yeah.
The editing, the mixing. And sometimes I'm mixing early on just to try to see if I can get this record to sound like something early on in the process. Because if you can't get it there early on in the process, you'll kind of start losing interest in the song, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so I'm trying to like figure out what can I carve out. And so EQs and compression, those are part of, for me, like the producing the songwriting approach, you know, it's an EQ is just a tool to, you know, create space, but I look at it as like it's a songwriting tool, you know, like how can I carve out all the frequencies as an instrument to make it interesting, you know, for this one little spot. So I'm automating EQs. I'm ducking, side chaining things. I mean, all sorts of crazy shit, you know?
Yeah,
that
mixing
no one
really
cares
is
about.
its own thing. Like, if you watch videos of Chad Blake when he's mixing, if he's on a board, like, he'll pretend to do a little vibrato when he's, like, bringing up a fader or something. Like,
Yeah.
It's an instrument, too. Like, my favorite producer guy, FKJ, I obsess about him. Someone asked him, like, because he's a multi-instrumentalist, like, he started out on keys. He's really good at guitar and saxophone and a little bit of drums. But someone was like, what's your favorite instrument? Like, you can play all these different instruments. Like, what's your favorite one? Expecting he's going to say guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, it's the computer.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the mixing board and the computer. Like, it's an instrument now.
Yeah.
With all the stuff that you can do with it. It's its
I
own
find
beast.
myself, I mean, I'm a drummer, and then I'm also an acoustic guitar player.
Yeah.
And I play a little electric, a little bass. You know, if you play guitar, you play bass a little bit. You're not a bass player, but you play bass, you know.
A lot of bassists just got really mad.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it. I'm not a bass player, but I understand how, that's another thing. It's like, if you're going to be a producer, you can be like a techie engineer producer type, but if you don't know how to play instruments, you're going to be very limited of how you can communicate with session players. And so I think it's important for younger producers coming up, you know, guys to be able to learn how to play at least 1 or 2 instruments, or learn one instrument really well, but be around a lot of players to where you understand how.
Yeah, what is more sizzly? Oh, I know what he means. I got it. Like, he means this.
Yeah, like how does how does a bass
Yeah.
player play? You know, like how does a drummer play? You know, learn the instrument so you can communicate like what you're going for. You know,
Right.
and, you know, because like, you get in a room with a bunch of players and you don't talk that lingo. It's like they're gonna immediately size you up and go, okay, you're just
Who is
like a
this guy?
college, you know, techie producer engineer that doesn't know how to play.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that either, but I think you got to learn how to play a little bit to be able to communicate.
Speak the language.
And so, like, you know, we're talking terms like, you know, hey man, can you give me a little more spank on that snare? You know, or can you not rim shot, make it gushy? You know,
Yeah.
Need a little more
That's
poof.
one of my favorite ones, gushy.
Yeah.
The snare's gushy, man. That's so.
But sometimes it really helps. Like, when someone was describing, like, they were doing this parallel thing with a kick drum, he was like, yeah, I'm just looking for a little bit more splat. I was like, oh, yeah. Like, actually, you are going for more splat. That's actually a helpful onomatopoeia. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it is an onomatopoeia, I guess.
Like, it is a splat. Like, that's actually, for some reason, helpful.
Yeah, or like guitar, you know, it's like we have a terminology with like a spank on a compressor,
Yeah, right.
you know, or, you know, like spank is like an 1176, you know, it's more kind of more attack, where like an LA2A is a little more smooth and, you know, so all these tools are musical instruments like compressors, EQs. I find myself playing a lot less guitar and a lot less drums these days, and I'm more just in Pro Tools.
Yeah.
You know, making beats, you know.
Right.
Like I never thought I'd be like a beat maker. That's what, literally I went to a high school, Ravenwood High School a couple weeks ago, and one of the kids said, "So you're a beat guy, a beat maker."
Right.
And I'm like, "Mom, I'm a record producer, but that's what they call record producers now is beat guys, you know?"
Yeah.
And you know what? It's true because I'm finding myself playing less. Oh, by the way, I have this exact ride cymbal.
That's my go-to for any sort of
That's
tracking.
the one I got too.
Oh, it's beautiful. All the HHX stuff is great. That's that crash too,
Yeah,
and the hi-hats.
That's a killer, yeah.
Or the hi-hats are groove hats.
Yeah, I find myself playing less drums, man, and I'm just like taking samples now that I have. And
I'm doing the same.
making a groove or playing them on, pads and stuff.
But I feel like kids these days will do like they're just skipping that step of recording. Yeah, and they're just doing it all on the computer. You know, like they're just using samples. Like you make the samples.
Yeah,
You just got that one layer below.
Well, I've talked to people that have been making beats for like years at to some degrees, and they'll be like, "Yeah, man, I've been producing for 2 years, but I just never bought a mic because they didn't need one. You know, they were just making it all right there, and they had never rapped on their own stuff or whatever. And it's just crazy to think about that. But
There's crazy sample packs out there.
yeah,
They're astonishing. I remember the first time I heard some guy played me like this pretty proggy metal song. It's like, dude, these drums sound really good. Where'd you record these? Oh no, these are like Logic drums or whatever it was.
yeah,
Like, okay,
yeah.
that's where we're going.
I think it's a lost art form now. It's like,
Yeah.
the way I started was like I started out as a songwriter and a guy that played drums. And then I learned guitar because my dad was a guitar player, and it was really hard to write songs on on drums. So everything sounded like Phil Collins, I was writing, So I was like, I got to learn some melodic instrument in order to write songs. But starting out on drums and then going to guitar, I think was a cool combination because if you have rhythm and then you can learn how to, play an instrument and you have both of those, then it can lead you to kind of playing bass, playing a little bit of piano. Mm-hmm. But starting out being more of a musician, songwriter, and then out of just being obsessed with that, getting a computer and learn how to record, I think that's a cool way to do it because then you kind of start out as a musician, I'm a kind of a creator, songwriter, and then you need a way to record it and get it down so you can hear it back and hear, oh, this sucks. I got to learn how to play better, It's not tight, That's a cool way where I think in today's world, there's a lot of people just playing and then they quantize it and then it plays back. And there's a lot of that going on, but some of it's really cool music though, like the EDM stuff. I mean, I've done a lot of EDM too, and it's cool, but I think there's that musicianship that's lacking a little bit.
I agree 100%. They're doing some really cool stuff with production. Really, really cool. But I would love to hear a producer that's able to combine like really good musicianship with the cool production techniques that are happening in the EDM world. That's what I'm trying to do with my stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to do acoustic drums, but somehow find a way to do like cool production tricks that like people like Odessa or whatever are doing. Because I love both worlds.
I think if you can mix the two, I mean, guys like Avicii, he was good.
He was great.
He was good at that. He'd do the EDM stuff, but then he'd have like an acoustic guitar in there.
Yeah, he'd have like folk elements in those songs.
Ed Sheeran, is really good at that. And then there's this guy, I can't remember his name. He's like this guy that has a studio here in Nashville, and he's like a one-man band. And he
Mark.
He's on tour right now.
Sibylla.
Mark
S.
Yeah, Mark S. Yeah. That guy.
Live loop and everything.
That guy is.
Wait, are you talking about Mark Ribier?
No, Mark Sibelius. I think
I want to say Sibelius every time, and it's not right.
Sibelius, yeah. Yeah, check him out.
You would recognize it. We've actually talked about him before on here.
I'll check him out then.
Yeah, he plays all the instruments. He's got his dog going. He's looping stuff.
Yeah.
And man, that's really cool stuff. But yeah, man, this song is it's Bourbon Warfare, Kalen Cole, pretty cool track. It's just a good example of how, a song starts with very little kind of build, stuff drops out.
Yep.
I want to listen to the second chorus into the instrumental and then into this turnaround section, this dropout into this last chorus, just so you can hear. This is the most important part of every song. Chorus 2 into a breakdown and out.
Sure.
So let's listen to this just for a second.
You could be a better man than this bourbon warfare. Nobody wins. I didn't sign up to fight in this battle that we're in. I don't wanna be another late night casualty, so you'll have to choose Jim Beam or me. What's it gonna be? This bourbon warfare, nobody wins. I didn't sign up to fight in this battle that we're in. I don't wanna be another late night.
See, there's her high note. Mm-hmm. When she goes, she didn't do that, don't want to be. And that high note, she didn't do that on any other chorus. She saved it for the last chorus.
Right.
That's kind of like hit song formula. It's like chorus is big into an instrumental, then you strip everything out in the breakdown. You almost have to bring it down to nothing, just the loop and back to the piano, kind of where we started, and then back up. And then just when you're hearing the chorus again, there's like one little note that you go up to the high note,
You just take it one step.
up, and then you're back,
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's even a bigger contrast because you took everything out. If it was like a built-up verse before, it wouldn't have that drastic.
It's all about stripping stuff out, putting stuff back in, cutting things out, playing with the panning, just trying to, create dynamics, because the band's playing with dynamics, but sometimes it doesn't translate on a recording. You have to
Right.
just pull things in and out.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what a mixer's job is too, and a producer's job. But mixers, a lot of times they don't want to offend the producer. If they're like mixing something, they'll just say, I'm just going to mix it just how the producer gave it to me. But
Yeah.
I think a good mixer is like, I'm going to mute some things here for him and see if they like it, and that's what I'm doing, being the mixer and the producer. I'm like, let me try this now. Let's see if I can mute some things. A lot of times the artist doesn't even know they're missing, You'll put them in, put them out, and they'll go, wow, why does it sound like it got bigger all of a sudden? Well, it's because we took things out
Right.
of
Made
things
space.
before it.
Yeah.
And that's literally what I feel like my job is every day, is just how to get the song to be emotional, tell the story,
Yep.
forget about how much you paid for all the instruments, all the players. You just figure out how you can make that song, structurally sound like a hit song at the end of the day. I mean,
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
and the way you do that is by, starting with the vocal, putting everything around that vocal, trying to figure out what's getting in the way of it. I have a kind of a saying that I use that's kind of, I think, my quote now, but if it gets in the way of the story, like mute it, get it out of there.
Yeah.
If it's not serving the story, it doesn't matter how cool it sounds. If it's not serving the story of the song, just mute it, get it out of there. It's all about the artist at the end of the day. Like, people ask me, like, what's your sound as a producer? And I go, I don't really have a sound, because it's really about the artist. It's what their vibe is.
Right.
And they're coming to you to be able to get, more of them out. And they're trying to figure out who they are. They know who they are, but they're trying to learn more about themselves. Producer's job is to kind of get inside their brain, figure out how can we bring that out more.
Right. And you as a drummer too, that's the drummer's job. Like, you bring different snares. Like, if the drummer showed up, like, nah, man, this is my sound. Check out my totally cranked piccolo snare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only use the snare.
It's the Maroon
Yeah.
5
Signature
like,
sound.
popping.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I love your sound, dude, but like, that's not gonna fit with this song. Like, you got to be able to mold with the song.
I hate the question. Like, a lot of times when I'm quoting a job and they're interviewing me to get the job, they're always like, so, like, what's your style as a producer?
Yeah.
And I go, I don't really have a style because I grew up listening. I mean, me personally, I grew up listening to punk rock.
Yeah.
A lot of like, I mean, it sounds weird, but I listened to the Sex Pistols, the Clash growing up, the Ramones, Blink-182, a lot of like Christian music, which kind of turned into the punk rock Christian thing. And then listened to a lot of big band jazz.
Oh, let's go.
My dad was a big jazz guy. So I listened to a lot of Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Michael Bublé, Harry Connick.
Okay.
Then I had the punk world. And then somehow I ended up in country music, which, because I loved 90s country growing up, early 2000s stuff. So I kind of have a Rolodex of like all the different sounds, like jazz, punk, country, rock. You know, I went through the whole like 90s, 2000, the Nickelback stuff, which is now coming back in country with Hardy, Morgan Wallen. It's Nickelback country.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
Same guitar sounds, same drum sounds.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool stuff, but it's not new. It's been done before, right?
Right.
It's just now in country. But, you know, so I don't have a sound. I just kind of go where the artist goes. It's about the artist. It's not about me.
But you have all these things that you've learned from those past genres. Like you were saying, like you're good with cinematic sounds.
Yeah.
So like you have a cool card that not a lot of people have that you can play because you've had such a diverse background.
Yeah, the way I
just
fell into
works
the
with it.
cinematic stuff was really just trying to figure out how to get a job in the music industry that would actually pay me money.
Yeah. So what is that whole story? How did you find your way there to video games? Breaking Bad.
Yeah, a
and all
lot
these
of
crazy
weird
names.
ones. Yeah, but
it was
cool.
What was the one you?
Oh, we were talking about that. Because
we were
Sherlock
going through-
Holmes.
Yeah, that's right.
But that was for the video game, right?
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes video game, Breaking Bad video game. We've
We were
done
just talking
Jurassic
about that before
Park.
you shut up.
I mean, man, so I was working in Nashville, you know, from age 15 all the way to about 22. I signed a publishing deal here in Nashville with a big company, Young Guns Publishing on the road, great company. I was writing songs. I had to write like 50 songs a year, like good songs, not just like 50 songs, like 50 songs that I could turn into them. And so I was doing the whole songwriting thing, still producing, kind of had a studio, but I got really burned out from writing songs and trying to meet like quotas and stuff. And I hated like the whole like Nashville structure of like writing songs and turning them in and just all that corporate world. So I got really mad at Nashville and just literally like packed up and left Nashville, moved to the West Coast, completely on a whim.
How old are you at this point?
I was about early 20s. And so I moved to the West Coast really to chase a girl. There was this girl
There
that
it is.
met on a cruise ship. And
Oh man. Oh yeah.
Met on a cruise?
Those vacation people that you meet that it's
Yeah.
like love at first sight.
Yeah, you're
for
in a
some
good
reason.
mood
Yeah,
on beat.
exactly.
I was pissed off in
primed.
Nashville. I was like,
Yeah.
I've been in this town for almost like 8 to 9 years, pissed off, got this publishing deal, wrote all these songs. Nothing happened with any of them. We had a couple little holds here and there, but anyway, I went on this cruise. I was like, I'm going to go on this cruise. I'm going to kind of think about my life. Like, am I staying in Nashville? What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Went on this cruise, met this girl, saw her perform on a cruise ship. She was in this tribute band, which was an ABBA tribute band.
Oh, cool.
That'll get any man.
Dude, it was legit. I was like, wow, performing on a cruise ship, like, wow, what a cool life. Like paid vacations on boats every week.
Sure, see the world playing your music.
Caribbean, Mexico, Alaskan cruises. So I was like, maybe I could join this band and just do that for a while. So anyway, like long story short, ended up joining the ABBA tribute band for like about a year.
Yeah.
Was dating this girl, traveled the world.
Doing drums with the band?
No, I was doing utility roles. So I was doing
Okay.
like a lot of guitar, a lot of perk stuff. I was playing like marimba, glockenspiel,
Oh, cool.
because ABBA's music's very cinematic.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was learning, like, if you listen to ABBA, like Dancing Queen and some of those songs, they're very complex. Yeah, a lot of cinematic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was learning cinematic music, but kind of in this like rock, like Trans-Siberian Orchestra almost kind of
Yeah.
kind of sound. so I was kind of mixing pop rock elements with orchestral. So I was falling in love with orchestral stuff. So then I found myself in this band. We're traveling on cruise ships. Anyway, me and the girl didn't work out after all. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
Ended up quitting the band. Was going to move back to Nashville. But then all of a sudden this job opened up in the town that I was in, which was Reno, Nevada. Mm-hmm. And it was a gaming job for a sound designer. And I had a connection with somebody that kind of knew someone there. Mm-hmm. I said, why don't you try out for this gig? And at the time I was playing a lot of keyboards, a lot of multi-instrument like bells and stuff. So I left my studio back in Nashville. It was at my parents' house, early 20s, still in Nashville, left everything behind, didn't have hardly any gear, had just like a laptop and like all this road gear from this tour. There's like, you got to audition for this job to get this sound design job with this video game company. So I was like, okay, what do I do? I just make a song, make some sounds. And they're like, well, you need to score something. You need to score a piece of audio for something visual. So they gave me the Game of Thrones intro.
Oh, nice.
The long intro that's front of Game of Thrones with the swords and the fire and all that. They said, write a song that sounds like it could be the Game of Thrones theme, but it's not the Game of Thrones theme.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be fun.
And I didn't have I had a laptop. I had a bunch of random stuff all in this like garage in this weird town I'm living in. And so basically I just started composing something, didn't know anything about orchestral music, didn't have any good sample libraries at the time. I literally downloaded like Pro Tools as Expand. Mm-hmm. It's the proprietary
it comes
VI
with
that's in, and there's like
it comes with the computer.
Yeah, it comes with Pro Tools. If you have Pro Tools, it's like in your downloads folder.
Yeah.
That you can
Sweet.
Yeah, there's like cellos in there. They're kind of cheap sounding cellos and violins. But here's the thing: it's not like great samples, but if you write a good part with it, you could make it sound pretty legit. Mm-hmm. And I don't think my first demo sounded that good, but I composed this piece that sounded like it could be the Game of Thrones theme. And they loved it. They were like, wow, like they could hear the talent level of kind of, I guess, the composition. Mm-hmm. The samples didn't matter. The sound of the samples, they could hear the composition and go, I think he's got talent to do this. So then they gave me another game. It was like a pinball game, right? Like a song that kind of could work in a pinball game. And so this, me being stupid and like into like a lot of punk and rock, I'm like, I'm going to make a song that sounds like Pinball Wizard by The Who.
Yeah.
Like, you remember that with the guitars?
Yeah.
So I did like this oscillating keyboard thing, did another demo. They loved it. So long story short, I ended up getting the job to work in this corporate video game studio.
Wow.
They gave me an office, full office in this big, massive 1 million square foot building. Got the job, kind of sucked for the first year. I had a lot of other composers working in there that were kind of like mentoring me. Mm-hmm. Like they could tell I had the talent, but I needed to get mentored by other guys that knew how to compose like on a high level. Mm-hmm. And I was watching them. I was like kind of doing a lot of the leftover games that they had. Yeah. I was kind of the ghostwriter for the first year. But after the first year, I started becoming obsessed with orchestral composing, studying like composition, started listening to guys like Hans Zimmer, John Williams, studying a lot of those scores and just recreating them. I would recreate Jurassic Park theme. I would recreate, Avatar theme and just, and then I would start buying more samples, getting better sample libraries, Native Instruments, Spitfire audio, just start spending all the money I'm making from this job on samples. And then the company, what's cool about working for a corporate company is, they'll buy you tools too. Sure. Because you're working for them. So it's like, hey, I need this tool. Can you get it for me? It's going to help me become a better.
Yeah, only helps them too.
Do the job.
And they buy you computers and things. So it was the first time I was like, wow, I'm actually like making money truly as a musician and a producer. So I did that literally for about 6 years in that studio. And we did Breaking Bad. Wow. A lot of the sound guys were like, hey, we don't have time to do this game. You want to take this one? And I'm like, what is it? And they're Breaking Bad. I'm like, yeah, I would love that.
What
like,
with Breaking Bad was it?
It was a Breaking Bad slot machine that went out to casinos. So it was in Las Vegas.
Wow, that's so cool.
Casinos. It was in Reno casinos. It was cool. It was like Jesse Pinkman, Walter White.
Yeah.
2 characters, very simple slot machine. But we couldn't get the license to the original music.
Yeah.
Which was like this, it sounded like a meth lab.
Yeah, boom, boom.
Wow.
Yeah.
It had like a dobro.
Right.
Wow. And they had these like
It was a cool
out-of-tune
soundtrack.
gas bowls,
Yeah.
like boom, 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 boom. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's right.
Yeah, I
Cool
should have
soundtrack.
brought that.
That's
to
interesting.
Stems.
So how did they get the rights to make the video game or to make the slot machine, but not to use the music? How does
So-
that even work?
Yeah, fair enough.
How does that work?
That's a long topic of like,
we don't have to
of
jump down a rabbit hole.
basically like companies will get the idea of to do a game, but they don't realize how much it's going to cost. And then as they go through the process, they start scaling back like, okay, we paid $100,000 to get the license, but we can't get the music because that's going to cost us another 40 or 50 grand. So
Yeah.
can you recreate the soundtrack so it sounds exactly like it? And at the time, I wish I would have had things like AI splitters and things because now you can
that'd be
that'd have
huge.
been-
you can AI split stuff and you could
Right.
figure out what the hell is going on in this track.
Yep.
So I had to like EQ the track in Pro Tools,
Yeah. cut
listen
things
left
out.
and right, figure out. I mean, I could hear what the chord progression was. I could lay down like the overall, but there's sounds in the back that you're like, what are these things? Like,
Yeah.
And so we did some crazy stuff on that soundtrack. I mean, we literally like, I remember I brought in gas. So I brought in like these metal gas cans in the studio because I couldn't get the sample of the dun, 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 like these little hits in the back.
Yeah.
So I hit gas cans in the studio with drumsticks and then would use elastic audio to pitch each gas can bowl to be a different pitch.
Yeah.
And then I would sample those so I could put them on my keyboard and then play now.
You
the
play the
sample.
gas can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could actually put them as pitches.
Right.
And so we were doing a lot of weird stuff like that.
I would think that'd be like the funnest part about the cinematic music is like you get to play with these crazy sounds. Like is it Foley Studios?
Yeah.
Like that
Foley
seems
sound.
so fun. Just like how do we get the sound of someone falling down a
Yeah.
hay barrel?
I mean, man,
Like, how do we do it?
you just get obsessed with trying to recreate the soundtrack.
Yeah.
But then as you're working on it, you start to figure out what else can I bring to this soundtrack that could maybe make it like a reimagined version of it. Because it's
Yeah.
for a video game, so it's supposed to sound a little different. And we put some of these things on YouTube like years later. I have my Sherlock Holmes ones on YouTube. And
Cool.
there's a lot of people that said, like, wow, this thing sounds exactly like the original. I can't even tell the difference. Actually, I like it better,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
cool.
oh, man, that's pretty inspiring because Hans Zimmer's amazing. But I worked on that Sherlock thing for about four months. So I worked on that game.
Wow.
We used to work on games for anywhere from 3 to 6 months typically.
Wow.
They just give you kind of a rough deadline and check in periodically to see how it's coming, or
Well, there's a lot of it's corporate companies, so there's a lot of like daily scrum meetings, they call it, where
Yeah.
everyone meets for like, they call them sprint plannings and scrums. And so everyone would meet and like, here's what I'm working on today. I'm working on, the base game music, like the main music for the lobby, the menu.
Right.
Tomorrow I'm going to start working on like the bonus, the achievement level. And then there's like a whole like 2 months that goes by where like you got nothing to work on because you're waiting on art and the assets
Yeah.
to
yeah.
finish the game. So then you start working on your next game.
yeah.
So I had like 3 or 4 games going. I had like Breaking Bad, Jurassic Park going at one time. And then I had a Bewitched game, which was like this jazz, like 60s kind of thing. And so then I had to learn how to do big band music, which is really hard to program horns.
Yeah.
But we bought, all these libraries like Quantum Leap Brass and a library called Mojo, which is like a horn library. And I'm learning how to like program horns and like articulations, like stabs, like ba bow, like
yeah.
horn stabs, and switching articulations and just getting my ass kicked by all these composers, man. These guys are so good. They know how to create sounds that, you really need a real player to do them, but the samples have so many different key switches that you can switch from, a loud brass hit to a soft brass hit or a crescendo. And so you're learning how to do all this stuff, and you're just trying to figure out how to make it sound as real as possible. Mm-hmm. You want to fool the listener that it's like really the score,
yeah,
or it's a real orchestra, playing. And we actually would bring in sometimes real trumpet players too. Like we had some of the guys that were composers, they were players too. Like one of the guys was a trumpet player. So the way we would get real horns to sound real is we'd bring him in, have him play the top line, like ba-da, ba-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da, like Bewitched.
Yeah.
He'd play the top line, we'd get that programmed in, and then I'd bring the fake horns behind the melody line and harmonize.
It's like tricking the brain because the thing up front is an actual trumpet.
The melody is a real horn, but the harmony is the stacked fake horns.
Right.
And when you put it all together, it sounds pretty legit, especially if you have the right voicings, the right, harmony, and it sounds tight, it's quantized good. But, some of that stuff too, you can't even quantize it, because if you quantize it too perfect, it sounds fake.
Sure.
So you have to kind of leave it sloppy so it sounds real. So there's a lot of that. And all these guys that I would be working for, working with and stuff, they're all from Berklee College of Music. And some of them for like UCLA, like film scoring. And I don't have a degree in any of this. I never went to college.
Sure.
I came right out of high school, working on Music Row as a runner. And
cool. It's like
it's kind of like the Kobe Bryant of music.
Yeah.
You go from high school right to the NBA.
Yeah, it's like the story that people would like to tell.
It's like what all the original guys at like Abbey Road, they all started as 15-year-olds, because like back then in England, you got out of high school at 15 instead of 16, and they would go. We talked to a couple of guys from Abbey Road when I was at Blackbird, and that's how they all started. We talked to a guy from Trident Studios as well, which is another competing studio from the same era, and that's how they all started. They were all like runners, and then by the time they were 16, they were running the tape machine, and by the time they were 17, they were getting a little bit more responsibility, and then by the time they were 18, they're running sessions, and they would just wind up on these records and be like, oh yeah, they just put me on the Beatles record that day, and I got a credit.
It's real life
everybody's
school,
got a different path. Like I had a guy interning with me, great guy from Belmont. This last year, he was interning with me for like 6 months, and then it turned into almost like a year, because like I was like, hey, can you stay a little bit, a couple more months? Like he's like, I really got to go get a real job now. And then he did. He got a job with Sirius XM being a programmer. But he Belmont grad, but he's got musical he plays guitar, but he went to Belmont for 4 years. But a lot of these guys are getting out of Belmont, and then they can't get a job. And they spend all this money, in college. Then some come out, and then they get a job. So I don't really think it matters your path. I just think you have to be kind of obsessed with what you're doing, and you have to have like a passion for it. If you don't have a passion for this, it's not the right job for you.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't like aerospace engineering, like if you're not passionate, you're not interested in it, you're not
if you don't like being alone and like being lonely every day of your life,
or if you can't like lose yourself in it.
Yeah, you got to be.
I'm sure for all of us, like when we do what we do, time freaking flies. But there's other like part-time jobs that I've had where it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm instantly like my mind is all over the place. I just want to get this done with so I can do something that I actually care about.
Yeah, you got to be passionate about it, because like there's gonna be days where you come in and you don't have any inspiration. Like you got like a blank sheet of paper, or a blank Pro Tools window, and you're like, I want to create something. But if you don't have like passion and you don't love doing this, then it's just not the right job for you. And also it's a lonely job. I sit in the studio alone by myself, but thankfully I have like a wife now. It's beautiful. And like, when I leave the studio and I go home, it's like, oh, I go home and I come back to the studio. It's like, you find that passion between home life and work, which I think that's why I love Nashville, is because it's very 9 to 5 here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Everybody goes in at 9, they go home at 5. I mean, there are sessions that go late sometimes to like midnight. You know, if Post Malone's in town, you'll be there till 3 a.m. But like, you know, because like they're just, it's like the old days. Everyone's smoking, having a great time. But most Nashville sessions are 9 to 5, home for dinner.
Yep. People got families.
Repeat.
I love it though. Like
work-life balance.
you need, I've heard work-life separation too. Like they need to be separate things. Yeah. If you're in the studio, you're in the studio, and maybe you're not thinking about, you know, other relationships. And then when you're hanging with your family, you're hanging with your family. Yeah. You're not thinking about God Particle, this cool new plugin that you've been messing with, right? Like it's just when you're doing it, you're doing it. I kind of think we talked about the Shan too, like our last podcast. Just like you need to be able to separate. Yeah. With her, it was just like if you're on stage, you know, be that person that you're going to be on stage. If that's like, you know, a performative thing. But when you're not performing, like you're not performing. And it's hard for people to find that separation.
It's hard to shut it off, you know, like, I take a lot of my mixes sometimes, like, this is kind of funny, but like, I'll be in the studio like all day from like 9 till like sometimes 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And then, you know, I'll save, kind of shut the computer, you know, put it to sleep. But I print a mix always after I'm done, you know, and then I'll kind of send it to my phone.
Yep.
Because that's how we do it now. We, you know, airdrop it to our phone. Then we can take it with us and we can continue to listen to it for the next 5 hours. I'll bring it inside. And my wife's like, you need to stop playing that song. You've played it all day.
It's got to be horrible. Is she a musician?
She is. She's a fantastic artist, songwriter. Okay. Actually, she's my most successful artist that I've ever produced. She's got millions of streams on her stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. Lauren Reno. Got an album, Gold Rush, I produced, but she's...
How cool is that, dude?
It's cool to be married to a musician and we actually get along, you know, because
that's good too.
So many people, like their husband and wife, they either like don't get along or they end up, you know.
Especially if they're in the same kind of field too.
Yeah, it's like competitive. It's like, who's better? It's like, well, I'm a producer, she's an artist. But she'll go like, you're still listening to that thing? Like, we're trying to watch TV right now. And I got the phone like this and I'm listening to my mix.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm trying to hear how it sounds on the iPhone.
Yeah.
Right.
If I can hear everything that I've worked hard on.
Right.
And then if you don't just shut it off, I mean, you'll take that mix to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to let go sometimes because your mind is just so, you've been working on it for 8 hours that day. Like you're going to be fixated on it for sure.
Yeah. A couple days ago, I was listening to a mix that I had just finished while I was in bed with my phone right there. Like, just one more time before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll catch something different this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you do. Yeah, you're like, in the morning you get up and you immediately... But I got this new philosophy.
It's always the morning where you're like, maybe I should just delete the song, actually.
I got this new approach that I do, though, now, which is a little better, and maybe this will help people. But what I do is I print the mix, and then I'll print it so I have it available on my phone. But now what I'll do is I'll just wait till the morning to listen to it, fresh ears.
Yeah,
and then I'll listen down to it, usually in the car first. I always go to the car. And then I don't stop it. I just play it from start to finish. And as I'm listening to it, I'm writing down all the things I'm hearing from like 0 all the way to 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And I'm writing them down as I'm hearing them in real time and making notes of each section, not stopping and starting, just writing down what my instincts are telling me that's wrong with this mix and all the things I want to change. And then go back and do just those things. Don't do anything else. Because if you go back in there, you might start, what if I try
something else? Yeah.
I try this. And that could be the one thing that literally the artist goes, why did this whole mix change? And it sounds terrible now. Like you start changing too much, you know, and a lot of times too, it's the artist notes that I'm going through, the revisions that they have, which is a whole other list of things that sometimes I don't even hear. I'm listening to, my list is like all these things that, you know, are more musician-like notes or mix notes. And then when they send their notes, it's like, hey, I don't like the T on the end of this word, but I don't hear that at all. I don't even hear what they hear. But then you have to listen with their ears and go, okay, I hear what they're hearing now.
Yeah, they're listening to their more individual parts as opposed to the whole, potentially.
That's really been a learning curve for me over the last, that's probably the biggest obstacle I face on a day-to-day basis is how to take the artist notes, hear what they're hearing, and then truly try to hear what they're hearing. Because sometimes I don't hear what exactly they're hearing.
Right.
But you have to listen kind of like they do, and then do those notes, and then ship it back to them. And then they might hear something again the second time they listen to it. Like, oh, I don't like the way I sang the chorus at all. Can we re-sing? And it's like, so that's the hardest thing, is just trying to juggle like how to get my notes done, then get the artist notes done, and then kind of know like when the song is done.
Yeah.
You know, you have to kind of say like, I think we're there. It's everyone's loving it. Like, and you could just keep going and going with notes, and before you know it, the song starts to get worse.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's getting better.
Yeah. It seems like the smaller the changes, like the closer you are to the end. Because in the beginning, like you're making huge changes. Like snare should be up like 20 dB right here. But then towards the end, it's like, should that just have like a 1 dB boost on like 6K? Like, okay, we're probably done. Like, we should probably call this a song.
There's times, man, when I'm like, we've been done like 6 revision sets ago.
Yeah.
6 emails ago, but I'm still working on this song. And like I had one artist one time that made me chop up the song, like where we were carving sections out of the song. Like we were taking out sections that didn't like the turnaround gone, fly chorus 3 all the way to chorus 1, but then continue the song from there. But then we're going to go back to like the verse at the end. Can you put the first verse at the end so we can bookend it?
You're just rearranging the song at that point.
Yeah, it's hard to do that with real live instruments that were performed. You could do that with like electronic stuff. It's all gridded out.
Right.
Yeah.
But with country music and stuff that I primarily work on, it's hard to kind of redo the song. That's where like pre-production is so important, is getting those things right.
Yeah.
Right away, getting the arrangement right, the songwriting part right. But I've cut some things up, man, that were so cut up that I couldn't believe we pulled it off.
It's hard to make it flow when it's at that.
And they were released just like that, and they sound good, and we made them work. But artist revisions are the hardest thing. But at the end of the day, you're trying to make them happy, trying to make yourself happy, and sometimes you're trying to make like their manager happy, the label happy. And it gets bad sometimes too, where you're working with really young artists where you're trying to make their parents happy. And
it's hard to please so many
I can't imagine taking mixed revisions from a parent.
That's all. We could do a whole podcast on parents, you know, and with their kids and stuff like that. So it's like you're trying to make a lot of people happy at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, it's like the song. It's how it was written.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to produce it into a great track.
Just making it sound good. Dude, thank you so much for being on this.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, man. Well, we talked a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
We covered a lot of ground.
Do you said you weren't going to plug, but I'm going to make you plug. If you would, like, because you got a great site.
Yeah.
You got a great logo, too, on the site. Is there a preferred place where people could reach out to you if they wanted to? If they wanted to record with you or DM you?
benrenoproducer.com. I think benrenomusic.com will get you there too. And then Majestic Ape Studio, like ape like a gorilla, majesticapestudio.com. There's a contact page on there. Instagram, Ben Reno Producer. Facebook, Ben Reno Producer.
You got that YouTube too?
Yeah, YouTube. But yeah, those are all the websites. And I appreciate you guys having me out. It's fun to kind of be here and see this room too. You guys are kicking butt with this studio. And
we're doing a lot out here. It's fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad you can see it, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate like other people's rooms, and see how people do things. And
it's all different.
I like talking to people. So
yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.